Assalamu alaikum. Hope you all are fine. In this video, we will start our next chapter, that is alcohol, phenols, and ethers. So, firstly, we will see alcohols, and in alcohols, we will see its three types, that is primary alcohol, secondary alcohol, and tertiary alcohol. So, firstly, why we call them as primary alcohol? Because the carbon that is directly attached with the hydroxyl group is further attached with one alkyl group that will known as primary alcohol. And when the carbon that is directly attached with the hydroxyl group is further attached with two alkyl groups, that will be named as a secondary alcohol. And when the in the tertiary alcohol, the carbon that is directly attached with the hydroxyl group is further attached with three alkyl groups that will known as tertiary alcohols. And this was in terms of the alkyl groups that is attached with the carbon of that carbon is attached directly with the hydroxyl group. So the other is the number of hydroxyl group. If the compound have one hydroxyl group, we will name it as monohydric alcohols. And when the compound that contains two hydroxyl groups, we will name it as dihydric alcohols. And when the compound that has three hydroxyl groups, we will see the trihydric alcohol. So these are in terms of hydroxyl groups in the compound. And next is the nomenclature of alcohols. So firstly, we will see the common names for alcohols. So this is the easiest, as the first step is name the carbon atoms of single alkyl group as for alkanes. And this is due to when we name alkanes, we count the number of carbon atoms, and then name it as the carbon atoms present in the compound. So in this nomenclature of alcohol, in the common names of alcohol, we will name the carbon as we name in alkanes. And then the other step is add the word alcohol following a space after the alkyl name. So we will have to add the alcohol name after alkyl name. First we will see the first example that contains four carbon chain, and at the terminal and there is a hydroxyl group. We will name it as butyl because of four carbon chain, and then alcohol after space. So the next example is when the alcohol is attached as a substituent. So we will name it as because it attached as a substituent, so we will name it as secondary alcohol or secondary butanol. And the other example is we have four carbon compound, but one carbon group or alkyl group is attached as a substituent, so we will name it as isobutyl alcohol or isobutanol. And the other is we have four carbon compound, but we have this is the tertiary alcohol, and we will name it as tertiary butyl alcohol or tertiary butanol. And the other is the nomenclature of alcohols, and it is given the IUPAC name of the following alcohol. So we will name it as IUPAC steps or rules according to the IUPAC rules. So we have a compound that contains a 6 carbon chain, and a substituent that is alkyl group, and another substituent that is hydroxyl group. So how we name it? We have to follow some steps to name the compound. The first step is find the longest carbon chain containing the carbon bond to the hydroxyl group. So firstly we will see the parent chain and the number of carbons present on the parent chain. So there are 6 carbons in the parent chain and it is the longest chain, so we will name it as hexane. Will convert into hexanol because it contains a hydroxyl group. And the last one, E from hexane will be changed to ol. So the suffix will change to ol, e to ol. So the hexane name of a chain of carbon will convert into hexanol. The other step is the number the carbon chain to give the hydroxyl group the lower number and apply all other rules of the nomenclature. So the second step is we have to number the chain and we have to give the hydroxyl group the lowest number. So we will see the numbering and we have to conclude that we give the hydroxyl group the lowest number and the number is 3, and we will number from the left hand side. So hydroxyl will be on the fourth carbon, and we have to number from right to left. So the carbon is 3 on which hydroxyl group is attached. So we will prefer the lowest number given to the hydroxyl group. So this will be known as 3-hexanol. And we have a substituent that is alkyl group and methyl, and it is on the fifth carbon position, and we name the substituent firstly and with the number of carbon, that is 5 on 5 carbon, 5 methyl and 3 hexanol. So we will see the other is the naming of diols. That compound that contains 2 diols means 2 hydroxyl group. So the naming is same. 2 numbers are needed to locate the 2 hydroxyl group. So we will have to number the 2 carbon because each carbon will contain the hydroxyl group attached with it, and use diol as suffix instead of ol. So basically this is the compound that contains 6 carbon chain, and it is the parent chain, and in which the first carbon and the 6th carbon has hydroxyl group attached to it, and we will name it as hexane. And the numbering of carbon that contains hydroxyl group, that is 1 and 6, and we will convert the ol to diol because there are 2 hydroxyl groups. So the other is we will see the examples of alcohols. So first example is a 3 carbon chain, and at the terminal hydroxyl group is attached, so we will name it as propanol. The other example contains 2 hydroxyl group on ethanol, ethane, 2 carbon chain in which each carbon has hydroxyl group. So we will number it and then name it 1 2 ethane diol. And the other example is 3 carbon chain in which terminal carbons has hydroxyl group, so we will name it as 1 3. The numbering of carbon that contains hydroxyl group, and that is 1 and 3 propane diol because 2 hydroxyl group attached in this on the 2 carbon atoms. And the other is the 3 carbon chain, and each carbon has hydroxyl group attached to it, so we will name it as 1 2 3 propane triol because 3 hydroxyl group attached to it. And the other is a 4 carbon chain, and in which 3 carbon has a hydroxyl group, so we will name from the lowest, because we have to number from the left hand side, not from the right hand side. So this will be given because we have to give the lowest number to the hydroxyl groups, and we name it as 1 2 3 butane triol. And the other examples are we have to name it as 3 carbon chain that has hydroxyl group on its terminal end. So we will also name as 1 propanol. And the other example is 4 carbon chain, and on the second position the hydroxyl group is attached, so we will name it as 2 butanol. And the other example is we have 5 carbon chain, and on first carbon we have hydroxyl group, and on fourth carbon we have a substituent that is methyl group, and we will name it as 4 methyl 1 pentanol, or 4 methyl pentane 1 ol. And we will not name it as 2 methyl 5 pentanol, because we have to give the hydroxyl group preference, and we have to give the carbon lowest number which is attached with the hydroxyl group directly. And the other example is the three carbon chain, and on which one on one side the hydroxyl group, and the other terminal has halogens. So we will take halogen as a substituent, and we have to add the hydroxyl group in the parent name. So basically we will write the substituent name first along with the carbon name and number. So it is on the third carbon, so 3 chloro and 1 propanol. And the other example is we have a 5 carbon chain in which on the second position carbon there is a hydroxyl group, and on fourth position there are two substituent, and these are the same substituents, that is methyl group. And we will name it as 4 because there are two substituent and there are same substituents. So 4 dimethyl, because we will name di because there are two substituents dimethyl, and on the second position there is a hydroxyl group, we will name it as 2 pentanol. And these are the examples of alcohols. We will see some more examples, and the first example contains 5 carbon chain, and on the terminal carbon there is a hydroxyl group, so we will name it as 1 pentanol. And the other example, we have 5 carbon chain, and on the second position hydroxyl group is attached, and between 3 or 4 position there is a double bond. So we will name it as 3 pentene. Pentene, we will name pentene because on the third position, third and fourth, between third and fourth carbon there is a pi bond, and there is a double bond, we will name it as 3 pentene. And on the second position there is a hydroxyl group, we will name it as 2 pentanol. And the other example is also a 5 carbon chain, but we have 3 hydroxyl group, and we have to name the hydroxyl group with we have to firstly number the carbon chain. So we will see the carbon that contains 2 hydroxyl groups and 1 hydroxyl group, so we will prefer the 2 hydroxyl groups on the carbon. So we will number the chain from right hand side, and we will also we have three substituents or three groups that is attached on the chain, and these are all the same group, so we will number it and then name it. So on the two second carbon position there are two hydroxyl groups, so we will name 2 and on the fourth carbon there is a hydroxyl group, so we will also add 4, and then the carbon chain that is pentane, and we have 3 hydroxyl groups, so we will not write di, we will write tri and ol for the hydroxyl group. And the other example is there are 5 carbons in the chain, 6 carbons in the chain, and we have on fourth carbon position 2 groups, that is the hydroxyl group and a methyl group, so we will name it as 4 methyl and 2 and 4 hexane diol. So these are some examples of more examples of alcohols, and that is the first example is the chain that contains 4 carbon, and on the second carbon there is a hydroxyl group, so we will name it as butane, buta 2 ol. Okay, the other example is the 4 carbon compound, but they will form a 3 carbon chain, that is the longest chain, and on the second carbon position there are 2 groups attached. The one is the hydroxyl group that we will add on the parent name, and the other is the substituent, that is methyl group, so we will name it as 2-methyl propane 2-ol. The other example that contains 3 carbon chain, and on the first carbon there is a hydroxyl group, and on the second carbon there are 2 groups that is attached on it, that they are all same groups, that is methyl group, so we will name it as 2,2-dimethyl because of 2 methyl group, and propane 1-ol. The other example is 4 carbon chain, and on which one carbon has a methyl group and the other carbon has a hydroxyl group, so we will number the hydroxyl group the least, so we will give the hydroxyl group carbon the least number, and that is 2 instead of 3. So we will name it as 3-methyl because the substituent is methyl group, and 2-butanol or butane 2-ol. So these are the examples of alcohols, and the other is we have a chain that has 7 carbon and on which a hydroxyl group is attached, so we will number it the lowest, and we have to count from right to left, not from left to right, so it is on the third carbon position, and we will name it as 3-heptanol. And the other example is also contains 7 carbon, and on which on the sixth carbon position there is between sixth and seventh carbon there is a pi bond, and at fifth position there is a substituent, that is methyl group, and on the second position there is a hydroxyl group, so we will name it as a 5-methyl 6-heptene because because there is pi bond or double bond between sixth and seventh carbon, and 2-ol. So these were the sub examples of alcohols, and this is the end of the nomenclature of alcohol. Thank you so much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.